Hi, I'm FIDE Master Lev Bulenko, and in this series I explore the typical mistakes of people rated anywhere between 1000 and 2000. This is a first reaction, no engine analysis of a chess.com game played between 1653 versus 1652. Let's start. Right, so e4, knight f6. Not the most common opening. This is called the Ali Heinz defense. Black develops the knight, attacking the pawn, develops the knight with tempo. Not the most common opening because it simply allows white to push e5 with tempo, gain space, and attack the knight. So it's a more unorthodox opening. Let's see, knight c3. Knight c3 is okay. The main move would be, e5, gaining more space with tempo, attacking the knight. Usually black goes knight d5, and then again gaining even more center, opening up the bishop, potentially maybe attacking the knight with a pawn or with a bishop, maybe developing the knight and castling. And white should have here a small advantage, simply due to the fact that white has here, more space, more center, and more development. But let's see, knight c3, all right, d5, Another move would be e5, which would actually transpose via a different move order to the Vienna opening or the Vienna game. And here white can just play like bishop c4, d3, and then white can go for like, let's say, f4, knight f3, and castles, and start to attack on the king side. But let's see, d5, yeah, quite interesting. All right, ed. Another move would have been, e5, and let's say d4 takes, and let's say black takes this way, and we have a quite an interesting position, around equal, although white should have maybe a very small advantage simply due to the fact that, white has like, it's white's move, white can play d4, white has the center, and white is the first to move, like, that's why white has the advantage, because he can develop faster, okay? But let's see, ed takes, all right, knight d, yeah, not so sure about knight d5, not so sure. I think bishop c4 would have been more natural, develop a bishop with tempo. And if knight takes c3, there's maybe even this interesting move, although we need to see if it works. Queen f3 is thinking. Not taking the knight, although we can, of course. The easiest would be to just play like bc, which is absolutely fine. This is like the most natural, the easiest. Followed by like d4, and then we can put the knight, depending on the situation, either on f3 or e2. f3 would be more active, and then castle, and have a good position. We also have a b5, can put pressure on b7. We have a great bishop on c4 that puts pressure on f7. If we develop the knight on f3, later on it can go to, let's say, g5, where it would pressure f7 as well as h7. Unless black puts his knight eventually on f6, we can also play queen h5. So this looks pretty good for white. So bc, definitely the easiest, definitely the most natural. But I'm just saying that queen f is quite interesting to complicate the matters. But let's see if it works. Queen f3, attacking the knight and the pawn on f7. And now if black's trying to save the knight, let's see, I mean, through d5 can go, through e4 can go, through b5 can go. What remains? Here. Let's see. I mean, bishop b5, obviously, versus bishop d7, but our point was to take here. Actually, it's just checkmate. We just take with the bishop, check, king d7, and now queen d5, checkmate. And black, cannot move a king anywhere. Yeah, so in fact, this is just complete checkmate. It's just checkmate. Yeah, so knight a4 does not work. And if black plays e6, then we can take the knight either with a queen. The plus of this would be to, prevent the bishop from moving, because then we just take on g7. So we postpone black's development, black's castling of a king side, which is pretty good, right? And next we can develop a knight, castle and stuff. Another way we can take with a b pawn, and then, we get similar stuff that we already looked at. And maybe even with a d pawn might be interesting, potentially. Opening up this bishop, right? And maybe preparing like rook d1 or long castle, depending on the situation. But ultimately we'll put a rook on d1 and dominate the d file. So it also makes sense. This queen can maybe go to g3, again prevent the bishop from developing, and then play like knight f3. Yeah, so either way, looks pretty good for white, and plus we force black to play e6, which black his bishop, black his bishop, and now he has a passive bishop. So queen f3 also is pretty interesting, but otherwise just bc is completely fine. Let's see. But yeah, bishop c4, I think. And if knight b6, just bishop b3. And again, we have a great bishop on b3, you know. And next, can just play like knight f3, castles, d4, get the center, activate this bishop. The knight from f3 can go either to e5 or g5, pressure here, put the f1 rook on e1 to pressure the e file. The queen could potentially go to, you know, h5 if they allow us. If not, maybe to like, you know, f3 after the knight goes to like e5, let's say, or g5. Anyway, this looks, yeah, pretty good for white. Potentially this knight, maybe we could attack with a4, a5, you know, and then make it go back. So yeah, should be small advantage for white. But yeah, bishop c4 usually is a move in these kind of positions. You know, knight d5, maybe we simplify too much. It's, yeah, no, not good. But okay, knight f3, c5, huh? Well, the point of c5 is that black saw that white can, like, you know, push 2 pawns in the center, and so, you know, probably trying to prevent that. But on the other hand, that weakens one, the light squares around it, right? And secondly, you know, it's a pawn move, not developing pieces. It's already not ideal that black has a queen in the center, which in the opening usually you don't put your queen in the center because it can get attacked with tempo. So that's already not ideal. Basically, black has no minor piece developed. His king is in the center, his queen is in the center, and now he makes yet another pawn move. Yet another non-essential pawn move in the center. So white has here clear development advantage. Yeah. d4. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Let's see what else. Another move, you know, with tempo would have been probably bishop b5 check, right? To develop with tempo, and after knight c6 just castle. Because like our main goal is to castle as fast as we can. Then we can play all this stuff. d4, oops, d4, c4, rook e1, knight e5, all this stuff. But the main thing in the opening is to secure your king, right? King safety. So bishop b5 would have been a move. I mean, another interesting move might have been, I don't know, b3, more unorthodox, you know. The idea is to develop the bishop, put pressure here, hinder the development of this bishop, but also prepare bishop c4 with tempo, attack the queen, attack f7, then we'd have two great neighboring bishops, right? Two neighbor bishops, putting pressure on the neighbor diagonals, you know, and then we can castle, and then maybe this knight can go to g5 or e5, and it's a great combination with such a knight and two neighbor bishops. So b3 would have been another interesting move, you know, or like I said, bishop b5. But okay, let's see. d4 takes. Yeah, not so sure about this. White goes into the endgame. Usually, when you're up in development, you don't want to trade the queens to have more attacking potential. Because if you simplify it too much, you cannot really exploit your advantage in development, right? So usually, you don't want to trade the queens. Not so sure about this, but okay, let's see. Takes. a6 makes sense. The threat is knight b5, knight c7. So a6 is a good prophylactical maneuver or move, I should say. Bishop e2. Bishop e2 does make sense, but there's also another move here. Wait, let me see. So the point is, in these kind of positions, there is this typical idea for black sometimes, you know, b5, bishop b7, taking over this long diagonal. So the plus of bishop e2 is that if now black goes b5, we take it over first. Before black goes bishop b7, we can go like bishop f3, right? And put annoying pressure, you know, and if rook a7, maybe let's say bishop f4 attacking the knight, or bishop e3, you know, eyeing the rook on a7, with great advantage for white. So that would be one plus, I guess. The downside, I think, is that it allows e5. Now black can play e5. So another typical move in these kind of positions is like, you know, bishop f4, preventing e5, controlling this great long diagonal, also maybe preparing a long castle. The downside is black can maybe still go for e5, maybe like knight d7, and then e5. Let's see, castles, e5. I mean, rook e1 we have, but then f6. Maybe a knight e6. A knight e6 is pretty interesting. Threatening knight e7. So yeah, if it doesn't work, knight e7, double check, then take the rook. But even if we don't take still, how do we prevent? Yeah, we can't really prevent knight c7. I mean, rook b8 we can play, obviously, but can either give a check, then black won't be able to castle. We can just take the bishop and have a power of 2 bishops and then move our bishop away to, like, let's say e3, right? Just take the bishop and then bishop e3 at the very least. Or we can keep attention and just move a bishop immediately to e3 and not taking the bishop, because this bishop on f8 cannot move anyway, because we just take on g7. So we could just move it to e3. So there's many options. But yeah, looks pretty good for white. So yeah, rook e1, so e5 doesn't work. And if e5 doesn't work, this should be pretty good for white. Next, we can just, like, maybe develop a bishop, bring the h rook to e1. This knight could potentially go to, like, maybe f5, or I don't know. Yeah, looks quite good. Yeah. Yeah, looks good. And, yeah. And if f6, I mean, that weakens a bit of a long live diagonal. f6. I mean, maybe we could just move a bishop away. Maybe, like, just bishop e3, e5, and just, like, knight b3, let's say, you know. And then black has some weak light squares, you know, but we need to cover, and we have much better development. Next, we just castle queenside, have a d file. Potentially, black has very weak light squares, like I said previously, so white can play, like, bishop c4, control all of these light squares. Plus, the b7 pawn potentially is weak, so if black tries to, you know, like, cover this weak, you know, light squares and tries to play bishop e6, then b7 is weak, so then white can play, like, I mean, after white castles first, castles long, then white can play, like, knight a5 potentially, pressure b7, not so easy to defend it. By the way, if black ever plays b5, there's this a4 idea, especially if white hasn't castled yet, I'm saying, b5 and a4 especially, with rook on a1. But also, black also has very weak dark squares, like b6, c5, so white could play, like, you know, either knight c5, put great pressure on d7, e6, b7, and if black takes, white just takes with a bishop, black won't be able to castle, white would have a power of 2 bishops, especially the dark square bishop, and white would completely dominate the dark squares, right? Or vice versa, white could, you know, put his bishop on c5, and after black takes on c5, take with the knight on c5, right? And have a great dominating knight on c5, so both options are possible. But yeah, black here has some very weak squares, light, dark, bad king, you know, bad development, everything bad. So yeah, I think bishop f4 would have been interesting, but okay, bishop e2 is actually also interesting because, yeah, it also looks good, yeah, because then after e5 we can maybe still go for the same stuff, except that here black is not obliged to play, we haven't obliged him to play f6, so he doesn't have as weak, you know, light squares, because his pawn is still on f7 after e5, whereas when we play bishop f4 we force him to play f6 basically, or knight d7, e5, and then rook e1. Anyway, let's see, bishop e2, okay, it's okay, but yeah, and the alternative would have been bishop f4, also very interesting, plus we have faster, you know, castle on the queen side. But let's see, here, yeah, this is not good, knight f3. Now black can play f6 or knight c6, which he played, or f6, and now this knight is limited, has no moves. It's completely stupid. Plus it limits our bishop. The bishop cannot go to f3, put pressure on the diagonal. So remember, in these kind of positions, always put the knight on b3. 1, it does not block your bishop. 2, more importantly, the knight controls and can go through these great dark squares potentially, you know, and attack so much stuff, you know. So c5 is super weak for black after bishop e3. So yeah, knight b3 was the right move. But let's see, here, bishop e3, okay, makes sense, good move. Bishop d6, here, I mean, another move would have been long castle, right? Long castle, but okay. White decided to castle short, here, h3, kind of slow. Why not just put a rook on the d file, like, let's say, by f rook, for example? Why not just attack the bishop with tempo, you know? And if bishop back, well, when this pawn is now not as well defended, if bishop to c7, that allows us, let's say, bishop c5, you know, with tempo attacking the rook. There's also ideas like knight d2 here, by the way, and then the knight can go to, let's say, e4, you know, and then c5 or d6, or or c4, and then from c4 through d6 or b6. b6 is also super weak, by the way. So from c4 through b6 or through b3, and then from b3 through c5. As you can see, there are multiple ideas, you know. But knight d2, I think, looks quite logical. And if black plays f5, we can just play, let's say, f3, you know, so that we have just in case, you know, like bishop. We also have bishop c5, obviously, but just in case, you know. Plus, we also prevent e4 stuff. So f3, I think, is quite useful here. Yeah, I think this was the correct way to go about it. But let's see. h3, way too slow. Bishop e6. Bishop d5. What about knight g5? Why not knight g5? Attack it with tempo. And now a bishop here, just c4. Right? And a bishop back, and we just take. And now we have a pair of two bishops, and black has weak, isolated double pawns. So why not just attack the bishop? I don't know. Yeah, I think knight g5 would have been not bad. But okay, let's see. Or rook d1. Or rook d1. But let's see. Here, h6. Well, maybe bishop d3 is also not so bad. Because f5 we have knight g5, yeah, I guess was the point. I mean, if bishop moves to have like bishop c4 check, like knight f7 stuff. Alright. Here, h6 to prevent knight g5. Bishop e4, rook c8, rook d1, bishop b8. Now, what's the point of c3? Why not play c3? We can see that black has pressure on the c5. Why not play c3? Limit the activity of this knight, plus limit the activity of the rook, the pressure of the rook. Now there's no more pressure. In these kind of positions, you should always play c3 to limit the knight and the rook. Not b3. b3 is a mistake. Let's see, f5. Takes, c4, f4, bishop c1, e4, knight d4 attacking the rook, rook d pinning the knight. Wait, I was thinking if this works, bishop f4, with the idea that after this, we can just take the rook. Takes, but yeah, the question is this good for white or not? Let's say check. Here, rook a8, we win the a6 pawn. Let's say e3, takes here, and then win the a6 pawn. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't know if this is necessarily better for white or not, or winning or not. Not so clear. But you have to always look for tactics like this, you know. But okay, bishop b2 here. King f1. Yeah, what about c5? Attacking the rook. Well, yes, the rook just moves. Yeah, rook d5. I guess doesn't change much. Yeah. All right. King here. Yeah. Yeah, why just screw it up? Yeah, why just lost the knight? Yeah. So should have either gone for what I said here, like you know, with like bishop f4, or shouldn't have played all this stuff. Should have played c3 when I said earlier, not c4. Okay. So yeah, no, yeah, I mean, why just completely lost? Yeah. All right. I hope you enjoyed the analysis, and I'll see you in the next video.